What's up, guys? It is DMG here, and today we have a couple of things to show you. One, it is going to be my Foot Champs team for the upcoming weekend, the very first weekend league of FIFA 20. And two, it is going to show you the tactics of a formation that I've really found to be at least consistently good for me. There have been formations that can do well in certain instances, but it's not a kind of catch-all formation. I'm not saying this formation is going to be really good against every single formation, but for me, it does well consistently against most of the formations and most of the teams that I come up against. So first, looking at the team itself, we do have Ruslan, we have Akanji, we have Berkey, Eder Militao, and Odriozola. Now, the backline is really, really solid. Ruslan, I swapped for Schultz, and he's been a lot better. Akanji's solid. Berkey has made some solid saves. Militao is just really, really good, right? Medium-high. Is very good in terms of pace, right? He can maneuver pretty well. And then we have Odriozola, who's mainly there for chemistry, but I mean, he's also not a bad player. We have Arthur and Sissoko in the midfield. We have Morales, we have Lacazette, Lucas, and Inaki Williams. Really been liking Lacazette lately. I've just started to use him, but 3 goals, 2 assists in 3 games. Inaki Williams has been killing it for me, 25 goals, 8 assists in 22 games. Lucas has been playing a little bit better for me. When I did initially use him, I was not a fan, but he's starting to be better. Same thing for Morales as well. So the team is good, right? But for what I found is the tactics and the formation that make the team really, really good. And that is the 4-4-2, right? These are the tactics that I use, again, in the 4-4-2. If you want to see how the team is set up here, Lacazette and Inaki Williams at strikers, Lucas Moura and Morales at the left and right mids, Sissoko Arthur at the 2 center mids, and then obviously backline's going to be the same. But for the tactics here, we start here with pressure on heavy touch, and I do this one instead of balanced. I do it instead of so I do this instead of balanced because I do like to have a little bit of a pressure, right? But I don't do it for press after possession loss, because when you lose the ball, that means you start pressing. So it's, for me at least, it's a lot harder to get, or it's a lot easier to get counterattacked. So I like to do pressure on heavy touch because they don't, let's say you lose the ball, they don't attack immediately, right? They don't press immediately. They wait until a good opportunity to do so, which is personally what I really like. Width, we had on 4 just so it's a little bit more narrow. Depth, we have it on 5 just so then, it's not on 4 just so then we're not sitting back. But it's also not, we don't want it higher, so then it's not, we don't get counterattacked as easily. Offense, I've preferred balanced. That's been pretty good for me. The width is just normally on 5, just so then we're not spread out a whole lot, but we're not narrow, and then we can't utilize the wings. Players of the box is 4. Been doing that so then the center mids don't get in the box. I've noticed that if I had it on 5, that the center mids would go forward a little bit too much. Corners, really hard to score from corners, and we don't want to be counterattacked, so we have it on 2. Free kicks, same thing. I personally just pass it off of a free kick. That's just normally what I've been doing. Now, next is the instructions, and this is probably the most important part of the video, along with who you need in the certain positions. So we'll start with the back line. We have the left and right back on overlap. That's mainly just because I've noticed that if you have overlapping left and right backs, you can overwhelm your your opponent. Essentially, it's a lot easier to basically go down the wing, and you're not going to be crossing it, but you can just cut it back inside, and you're going to have one of the center mids there, right? Maybe even one of the strikers if it's a really hard and fast counterattack. It does leave you a little bit susceptible to counterattacks, but I don't know. To me, I'd rather just go ahead and actually attack and try to play the game rather than sit back. The 2 center mids, actually, we'll leave the 2 center mids because that's, in my opinion, the most important part. So the left and right mids, I have one on balance and I have the other on cut inside getting behind, right? Now, the reason I have only one on cut inside getting behind is because it's more of an counter-attacking style, right? So I don't purposely sit back, but let's say the opponent is just piling on attack after attack after attack, right? I'm not just going to be, sending everyone forward. I obviously need to defend a little bit. So this player, one of the players that cuts I get behind, is going to be there for the counterattack. So basically what I do is I try to stay on the other side of the player that's cut inside getting behind. So we try to go on, the side with Morales here, on Arthur, with Inaki Williams. So we try to counterattack on that right side, and then we end it with passing across to Lucas, right? So Lucas isn't going to be involved touching the ball in the counterattack. I mean, I'm not saying he never will, because sometimes, yeah, he will if he's wide open. You should pass to him. But I'm going to try to stay on this right side. And, you can see here I have one of the center mids on get forward. So then we can do that counterattack and then end it with sweating across to Lucas, which I've done a few times, actually, right? And, again, it's mainly for the counterattack. I don't mind them in the build-up. I actually do like that they cut inside on the build-up, so that's obviously a good thing as well. But again, it's mainly for the counterattack. The two strikers, I have one on getting behind, one on mixed attack. One of them on getting behind. It does help with the counterattack, but it's mainly just for the build-up play, in that the striker on getting behind, forces the backline to hopefully sit back a little bit, or at least come back a little bit. It kind of stretches that back line and then allows more space for that other striker. And then the other striker should usually be better at dribbling, right? Naki Williams is very fast, but he's not the best dribbler. Lacazette's just better at dribbling. So we have him on mixed and balanced everything. So then he has more space to kind of dribble and kind of make a good pass or a good shot if he's allowed to. And then finally, the two center mids, again, the most important part in the field, at least in my opinion. We have Suzoko here and we have Arthur. We have one on stay back while attacking, one on get forward. Now, the instructions, it seems a little self-explanatory, I would say. You have one of the more defensive-minded players on stay back, right? You have one of the more attacking players on get forward. That makes sense. And, I know I talked about get forward for one of the center mids for the counterattack as well, right? This little part here for the counterattack, Inaki Williams, Arthur Morales. That's so then we can go forward on that right side and then pass it across to the other outside mid who's on cut inside getting behind. And I will say this, whatever outside mid that you want on cut inside getting behind, it should be the attacking mid should be on the opposite side. So, like I said, Lucas Moura, cut inside getting behind, he's on the left side. Arthur's on get forward as a right center mid. If Morales was on cut inside getting behind, I would switch Arthur, put him on the left side, and he'd still be on get forward, right? So keep that in mind. But I do want to talk about the specific players that you really, really want in these center mid spots, right? Because for the outside mids, for the two strikers, right, I think we all know what we want, right? Pacey players who are good at dribbling. That's essentially who we want at the outside mids and the strikers, right? Makes sense. For the two center mids, you want someone who has high work rates or medium high work rates, at least high work rates, for the player who's sitting back a little bit more. And then you want someone who can actually go forward, right? So, and like someone like Lo Celso would be perfect here. Someone like Eriksson would actually be really, really good here. Pogba would actually be pretty good, right? Because he has high medium work rates. Pogba would be perfect. So someone who can actually go forward, you want them, right? You want them, and you actually want them on get forward. The other player you have to have on staying back while attacking, and you at least have to have high defensive work rates, at the very, very least for the other one, so then you don't get caught on the counter. But that's going to be it for these instructions, for the tactics. If you do have any questions over it, let me know. But for me, again, 4-4-2 with these tactics, with these instructions, have been probably the best that I've had in FIFA 20 thus far, because it's the most consistent. I've been killing it with it lately. It does well against majority formations I've come up against, and it's just been a godsend for me. So again, I would highly recommend it. But again, if you do have any questions, leave them in the comments down below, or just hit me up on Twitter. Either way works for me. But like I said, that is going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been DMG. Peace.